Hello everyone. Today we are going to cover a very important topic that is based on Sri Lanka Tamil issue. So this is premised on the Sri Lanka Civil War against the Tamils, and we are going to learn about the implications for India. Now before moving forward, let me just tell you that this was also the subject of a very recent web series known as Family Man. So its season 2 was inspired from the same issue, and it showcased various realities associated. So it showcased the LTTE, it showcased the Tamil refugees, Sri Lankan Tamil refugees in India, but more importantly, it showcased a very important topic, that is how India-Sri Lanka relationship is hostage due to the Tamil problem. And talking about the India-Sri Lanka relationship, the Sri Lankan army is accused of war crimes during the civil war, and thereby they are facing a charge at the UN Human Rights Council, of which India is a member. So India has to decide if it wants to support Sri Lanka or not. So there are huge implications. Now before moving any further, let me just tell you, you're watching IS Primers with me, Shubhashish Singh Rehal. Now coming to the topic, and before that, let's understand the background. This struggle that took place, the civil war, was a struggle between two communities, that is the Sinhalese and the Tamils. The Sinhalese and Tamil are based on the language that they speak. Sinhalese is the majority community and they form the bulk. Even now they are about 80% of the population. So it's believed that the Sinhalese people came to Sri Lanka in about 500 BC. They are the speakers of Sinhalese and followers of Buddhism. And then we talk about the Tamilians. Should not come as a surprise that they are located in the north and the eastern part of Sri Lanka, given the close proximity between the Indian Tamils and Sri Lanka. So because they're geographically very close, there is a more predominance in the northern part over here. Presently, they are about 12% of the population. Now comes 1815, when Sri Lanka became a colony of the Britishers. Now Britishers saw this land as good for plantational activities. So British was a trading company and they wanted profits. They wanted the masalas and all the cash crops that could be cultivated. So what they did was they started migrating Indians, as laborers to Sri Lanka. So there was the demography of Sri Lanka was not changing as there were more Tamil population. And this was incidentally, this was also in the northern and the eastern parts, which is also the hilly region, a bit of a hilly, so more conducive for plantations. Now, because of the British, they had come there, British had also ensured that there were facilities for education and welfare for Tamils as compared to Sri Lanka. Sinhalese, it was much better. So they were more privileged as long as the British were there. But in 1948, the dynamics had changed. Now, it was the democratic government, and democratic government means that majority is in power. So Sinhalese were in power now as compared to the Tamil. And Sinhalese brought a controversial law which was known as Sinhalese Only Act. This implied that now Tamil will not be recognized as an official language. There is only one official language, that is the Sinhalese. So this is naturally frowned upon by the Tamilians. Now let me just give you a context about the language here, the significance. Language is not just the way we communicate, the way we speak, the way we think, the way we write. It's not just that, but it is also the gateway to the culture. People associate the language with communities. So language is one way of identifying different groups and communities. Now, when Sri Lankan majority says that they do not recognize Tamil, that meant that gates to civil services, government jobs were closed for the Tamils. Tamils had to know Sinhalese, otherwise there is no other way for them. Sinhalese will be taught in the schools of the Tamils as well. So Sinhalese will get the priority. So this affects their culture as well. So ultimately in 1958, there were major riots in Sri Lanka between the Tamils and the Sinhalese. Now, eventually this took a shape of the civil war. Civil war, that is, there were now emergence of the militant groups which believed in the brute force of the gun. And here the most prominent was the LTTE, which was founded by Velupillai Prabhakaran. Here is the person. And if you look closely at this image over here, on the right you will find the map of Tamil Eelam. Tamil, homeland of Sri Lanka. Eelam is basically associated with Sri Lankan part dominated by Tamils. And you can see, this is different from the Sri Lankan map. Now look. So he's basically saying, implying here that these are the territory of Tamil Eelam. And this should be a different country. And this will be done by the use of force by LTTE. Now initially, there were different groups in different parts of Tamil Eelam. So there were different groups, militant groups. Prabhakaran focused on consolidating them. He fought against the Tamil factions first, militant groups, and eventually consolidated them together into one, LTTE. And this proved as a front against the Sri Lankan army or the government. So this was a very brutal war that started, and it was first major incident was in 1983 when the LTTE attacked the Sri Lankan army or the soldiers. And soldiers had died. They, as typical stuff, they took their deployments, they took their arms, ammunitions, etc. This triggered riots in different parts. The Tamils were targeted in different parts of the country. So pogrom was conducted. Pogrom is kind of a genocide. So this took place. Now this concerned India. The LTTE, the militant activity that is going, the unrest in Sri Lanka affected India. Look at the map. Tamils here. So it affected India. And India was now required to do something. Initially, India was quite sympathetic to the LTTE cause. And ultimately, they came up with a peace accord, which was known as India-Sri Lanka Peace Accord. So there was an agreement between India and Sri Lanka, as per which, one, there was supposed to be an Indian peacekeeping force. Initially, their objective was to ensure that there is a ceasefire agreement between Sri Lankan army and the LTTE group. So they were just to oversee that. But in the course of time, they engaged in fight with the LTTE group. So this became very messy, and LTTE gave them a hard time given the fact that, they were guerrilla fighters. And also they engaged women and children. So they had a tough time identifying who's the actual militant, who's a civilian. So ultimately there were about 1,200 casualties, Indian casualties. And by 1990, they were forced out. They decided to exit. And this was also one of the reasons for assassination, LTTE turning against India, and Rajiv Gandhi was assassinated. By the way, I think I didn't mention, Rajiv Gandhi and J.R. Jayawardene signed the Sri Lanka Accord. Jayawardene is the then president of Sri Lanka. So this peace accord had Indian peacekeeping force would be there in Sri Lanka, and the other thing was that there would be devolution of powers. Devolution of powers to Tamil regions. So as a consequence of this, the 13th Amendment Act, or there was a change in the constitution of the Sri Lanka. And this 13th Amendment Act is also known as 13A. So as per this, the Sri Lankan government had assured India that they would look into the ethnic issues and address the grievances of the Tamil. And it talked about, to address the grievances of Tamil, it would address two things. One, it would ensure that there is devolution of powers. For this, provincial councils were established. And other thing, it would ensure that language is recognized, Tamil language. Now, when we talk about the provincial councils, we are basically saying there is greater devolution of powers. So more powers are given from center to the different states, different areas. So there is more autonomy. There is transfer of powers, and this means that this area would be eligible for making their own laws, legislative functions, executive functions. So all of this was defined and documented in the 13th Amendment Act. There was also a provision of establishment of a high court. On the language part, it said that Sinhalese and Tamil would be the official language and English will act as a link language. Now, LTTE thing continued, militancy continued. It basically showcased that 13th Amendment Act was one, it wasn't implemented well in letter and spirit, and other thing was both groups were not satisfied. The Tamil group, they believed that the powers given to them were too little, too less. They believed that important powers, and quite rightly actually, police, land and finances were not given to the Tamil group or the provincial councils. So this affects, imagine if let's say the provincial council decides to invest more in education or welfare scheme. For that they need money. Money is coming from the center. So this was a concern. Okay. And other thing was that this was again not well implemented. And the same was for the case of language. Even though the Tamil was recognized, it was not implemented in practice. So there was a sense of exclusion. So this promoted the LTTE activities, and therefore it grew more and more stronger over the course of time. Eventually, Rajapaksa government, the then president of Sri Lanka, Rajapaksa, he decided to go on an extreme offensive. Huge casualties was taking place, so he decided tough measures. But sadly, it went way overboard actually. There was a lot of human rights violations, war crimes that took place. These are actually documented on the video cameras, the Sri Lankan soldiers recording it. So those evidence are also available. This photo, you can see that their residential accommodations, schools, colleges were also targeted. In fact, air strikes, air raids were also done by them. Ultimately, Prabhakaran was killed, and in 2009, this LTTE activity was finished. It was defeated. Now, when we talk about this, the Sri Lankan government has to bear now the consequences of this. Even though the LTTE thing finished, the Sri Lankan government was under a lot of pressure because it was accused of human rights violations. Across the world, there was pressure, and they promised that action would be taken against them. The United Nations said that the events from 2007 to 2009 was nothing short of a bloodbath, and it estimates about 80,000 to 1 lakh deaths during this event. So there is pressure on the Sri Lankan government at this point about the human rights allegations. Sri Lanka obviously denies it, but there is ample proof on this subject. Now let's come to the present day and the situation for India. One, we are talking about India's relationship with Sri Lanka, and one of the important contentions are India's vote at UN Human Rights Council. Now the concern over here is very simple. One, the Tamils in India, they believe that wrong has been committed and Sri Lankan government has to pay for it. They expect their government to take action against the Sri Lankan government. Quite natural, quite obvious. On the other hand, the government feels that Sri Lanka, if we vote against them, then in that case, they will be anti-India. Sri Lanka is geopolitically very well placed in the Indian Ocean region, and it is also being attracted by China, which is giving it unconditional support. And China is interested in the Sri Lankan territory for investments and ports. It wants to create ports over here so that it can have more presence in the Indian Ocean region, something that does not go well with the Indian side. Second issue is the repatriation of the Tamil refugees. Since this was a long bloody war, large number of people over the decades have migrated to India and they took refuge. It's estimated that there are about 2 lakh refugees. Now, one, it is a national security concern. It's a national security concern because some of them would have that affiliation towards the Tamil cause, the LTTE cause. So there is a concern over there. The assassination of Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi was one example. Then, so one is national security concern. The second thing is that it is a huge resource burden on the resources of the country. The country has to ensure, it has to provide for the welfare of 2 lakh people, additional people. So there is a resource burden which should have been ideally be borne by the Sri Lankan government. And naturally it has to look into a way of repatriating them back to their homeland. So this has to be done. Now to repatriate, again, it has to ensure that there are suitable conditions. There is suitable, the stance of the Sri Lankan government has also changed. So one, India has this Tamil issue that is going on, and also being a major power in this region, which seeks to be a global power, it needs to has its own region in control. So with that stand, it needs to look at the post-war reconciliation between the Sinhalese and the Tamil. So it has sought an assurance from the Sri Lankan side for implementation of 13th Amendment in letter and spirit. Till now, they have not done that, and they say there are practical difficulties in doing it. That is why it is called as 13th Amendment minus. However, Rajapaksa, the present Prime Minister now, he is always in power. So he says that we are going to go well beyond the promise under the 13th Amendment, and this he calls it as 13th Amendment Plus. They haven't specified this, what they would do, but that is what the promise has been made. But as far as the majority Sinhalese group goes and major political leaders, they are not in favor of greater autonomy and devolution. And so this is there, that needs to be taken care of. And other thing is that the Sri Lankan government also came up with a national policy on reconciliation, basically setting a vision document saying that there should be equity, there should be justice, sense of justice, transparency in governance, the values of homogeneity should be encouraged. All those values have been incorporated, but nothing concrete as such. On the side of India is focusing on reconstruction, and it is making investments in, let's say, making of the houses, 50,000 houses, grant of money, unconditional money to Sri Lanka. So all that thing is being done from the Indian side. So this is all we have on this particular topic, and thank you for streaming into this video, IS Primus, and you're watching with Shubhashish Singh Rehal. And please do like, share and subscribe. Bye bye, take care.